This time on episode 312 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we discuss Cloak and Dagger Season 2, Episode 9, Blue Note, and Season 2, Episode 10, Level Up.
I'm Stephen John Drew from Better Podcasting, a podcast about podcasting, part of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find fantastic geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
You have been granted clearance by Director Alfonso Mack Mackenzie. Stand by for a S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. Director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Director SP.
And I'm Agent Michelle.
Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're a Marvel Comic Universe fan show. The show is recorded on Sunday, December 15, 2019, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios and broadcast bus line wide via www.geeks.live. Come and join our live chat and talk with us as we record. Michelle, happy National Cat Herders Day.
Okay.
Now, this is not actually herding cats. This is like the metaphorical, I'm herding cats at work or something like that.
Oh, okay. I get it. I think a current good example would be Matt Mercer on Critical Role. While the cast is wonderful, they do go off the rails, and Lauren and I are big fans of it. And we've commented about how sometimes Matt's job is not just to tell the story and do the rules of D&D, but it is to herd the cats that are the cast.
So jobs that might also fit the description may include dog washer, maid of honor to a bridezilla, a basketball player for Bobby Knight, a kindergarten teacher, a personal assistant to the founder of the National Day Calendar, an airplane repo specialist, and a manicurist for Shadar Chilla, the world record holder for the world's longest nails. I think they were having some fun with this on nationaldaycalendar.com.
I do too.
I have to tell you, Michelle, I wasn't going to bring this up because it's kind of funny, but since it's just between you and me, it is also National Cupcake Day.
It is?
It is one of the, I don't know how many, like gazillion National Cupcake Days. Yes.
Yay, it's a cupcake day. Every day should be a cupcake day.
Did you have a breakfast cupcake this morning?
No.
I didn't either, but I did have breakfast cupcakes this last week.
That's good. I've been ill, so I've been having oatmeal, which is not a cupcake.
No, I should be eating oatmeal. In fact, I thought about eating oatmeal yesterday and I didn't, but there was a good reason for it. Anyway, yes, National Cat Herder Days. By the way, this was founded, in case you didn't think this was real, it was founded by Thomas and Ruth Roy from wellcat.com.
Well, thank you, Thomas and Ruth. And also, I think we can also admit, SP, sometimes you have to herd cats in a way.
No, not a podcaster herding cats. Never.
Never.
It's all right. Anyway, let's get on with the rest of the show before we lose our 2 listeners that we have left. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fan-based podcast on the ABC television show Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the multiple Marvel small screen series, which that list is getting shorter and shorter, but it does include Cloak and Dagger, which we'll be covering today, and the Marvel Cinematic and comic book universes in general.
Because of the multiple uses for nail guns.
If you'd like to talk to us about using a nail gun to defend yourself against extra world beings, you can contact us through our website at legendsofshield.com.
You can leave us a voicemail at 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871.
You can contact the ladies to talk about the use of nail guns on our Facebook page, which you can find at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Podcast.
You can find us on Twitter at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You can contact us on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
You can tell your Amazon device to enable Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. skill.
And you can join our Discord server to chat with us about the multiple uses of nail guns at gonnageek.com/discord.
And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the gonnageek.com network.
First of all, I have to say thank you very much for your heroic efforts tonight, Michelle, in joining the podcast. You are getting over a nasty fall, I guess now winter cold. And thank you very much for joining the cast on this finale episode for Cloak and Dagger.
It's been going around. Like, there's people at work who's been ill, and then it's like going around, I think, the network or something, like some of us are. So I'm just glad I'm able to come and join you today.
And then we have to say that Agent Lauren is not with us tonight. She wanted to be here. Matter of fact, she tried to sit in her chair, but she has injured herself. And I won't say how, because that's her story to tell, but she has injured herself and cannot sit for the podcast. And then Agent Haley, as discussed last week, decided not to join us tonight because she's too sore because she ran too far too fast.
Exercise?
Yeah, I believe it was a 5K. So she was trying to get her time under 40 minutes. I will let her describe her time when she gets back on our next episode. So with that, it is just Michelle and I. We are talking about the finale to Cloak and Dagger, and we're going to get to it right now. Cloak and Dagger, episode 9 and 10 of season 2, aired on Freeform May 23rd and May 30th, 2019. Since it is December 15th, 2019, we have made it in the same calendar year of airing, Michelle.
That is amazing.
It is definitely amazing. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do it for Runaways, but that's just because it dropped 2 days ago.
Yes, and then there's the holidays, but we'll technically be current because people are still watching Runaways, and we'll be talking about it. It's very close.
Neither Michelle nor I have watched any of Runaways. I just want to make that clear as we record this. However, we do know that there is a Cloak and Dagger crossover at some point during the runway, so we will be talking about our favorite Tandy and Tyrone one last time when we go over Runaways season 3. But to get back to these episodes, Blue Note was the first episode that aired, the penultimate episode of Cloak and Dagger. It was directed by Canaan Mann, who has 21 directing credits starting in 2001, including 1 episode of Friday Night Lights, 1 episode of The Blacklist, 1 episode of Chicago Med, 1 episode of Sneaky Pete, 1 episode of Power, 1 episode of The Runaway, so a little crossover there, 1 episode of Deadliest Catch, 1 episode of Deadly Class, 2 episodes of Cloak and Dagger, and 1 episode of Looking for Alaska. It was written by a team of Alexandra Kenyon with 1 episode of Cloak and Dagger, and Peter Calloway, who has 7 writing credits starting in 2019, including 4 episodes of Brothers and Sisters, 2 episodes of Hellcats, 6 episodes of Under the Dome. Stephen Jondrew, who is the founder of the Gonna Geek Network, that is his favorite show ever, 2 episodes of Legion, 1 episode of American God, and 5 episodes of Cloak and Dagger. Now, Michelle, why don't you take everybody down the creative team for Level Up?
Level Up was directed by Philip John, has 35 directing credits starting in 1987, including 2 Murphy's Law, 2 Synchronicity, 2 Ashes to Ashes, 11 episodes of Being Human, 6 Downton Abbey, 4 Outlander, 1 Iron Fist, and 1 Cloak and Dagger. It was written by Joe Pokaski, who has 8 writing credits starting in 2006, including 8 Heroes, 2 Daredevil, 16 Underground, and 7 Cloak and Dagger.
And Joe Pokaski was the showrunner for Cloak and Dagger all the way both seasons. And Cloak and Dagger was based on the Marvel comics by Bill Mantlo and Ed Hannigan. Right. We're talking about Blue Note here and Level Up, and we often equate the titles of the shows towards the themes of the episodes. With Blue Note, Michelle, I think it has something to do with writing notes on a chalkboard with blue chalk, right?
You tried to pull a Haley. I'm going to give you a B minus for that. I think that gives a valiant effort. But Blue Note is an actual musical term, and Andre is wanting to hit this actual Blue Note. He wanted to do it in his career. Seems like he did when we learn in his back story. Sorry, and it's key to his evolution, which is the other episode, Level Up, which is everybody gets to level up. I love it. I love it when you play a game and you get to level up. Not only in like video games, but in D&D or whatever. In when your GM tells you you've got a new level and it's like, yay.
I kind of figured level up was literally like pushing up the gain on the mixer. I thought that's, you're leveling the gain up. That's what I thought it was.
That one's not as good.
You tried. They were both audio related. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you tried.
We did have the 2 episodes, Blue Note and Level Up. And honestly, I've been playing trumpet for most of my life. And I've never heard of a Blue Note. And I realize it might not just be horn based, but I guess Blue Note is just a special note that you're hitting at some point.
It has something to do with it's like a pitch thing. It's like a jazz. I looked it up and I didn't put the thing in. It's sort of like a jazz blues sort of deal, and you're hitting a certain pitch that people aren't expecting. It's just a special. It's like when you have an opera singer who's a soprano, right? Who hits that high C and they can hit it in a way that makes glass shatter. It's sort of like that in a way, that mythical note that people strive for. I mean, it's not mythical, it exists, but it's just that pinnacle.
Right. Okay, well, I'll have to pay attention to Blue Notes a little bit better. And honestly, I this is a failing of my not extensive, but long time playing. Now, I haven't played trumpet in quite a few years, but I have played in the past, so I was kind of surprised that I didn't know about this. So anyway, that's what the Blue Note is, and he definitely hit Andre. He's a horn player, and he definitely hit a Blue Note. You're right, it is specific to jazz from what I saw in a quick search. So way to go, Michelle. So let's talk about these 2 episodes. I'm going to talk about them together, because that's how we watched them, and I think they fit nicely together, although they are 2 separate episodes. The penultimate episode just kind of led up to the finale episode, because you had the final battle between Tyrone and Tandy trying to get to Andre, and they did get to him at the end, but it was too late. He had already ascended to his godlike status, which is what he wanted. And then the final episode was their, the final boss fight, and they're moving on with their lives, I guess. We'll talk about that later. One thing that I said last episode that I was wrong about was Leah was not killed. To me, she was dumped at the side of the road. She was bleeding all over the place. I kind of figured she was left for dead, but I guess not. He just pushed her out of the car because he wanted her gone.
Which is being left for dead. I mean, technically, if she wasn't found, she would have died, either from bleeding out or from exposure or just being hit by somebody else because, she's on the side of the road.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just wanted to point out that I was wrong, and I assumed she was dead. She was not dead, so that was just an assumption on my part. But she was drained quite heavily from Andre or Despair. I mean, we're just going to call him Andre. We never really had that talk. I know you had it in the show notes for last time, the difference between Andre and Despair. We just kept on calling him Andre, but you had a question of this, if this version of Despair was really like the comic version of Despair.
I was wondering if this is the writers trying to fit the comic book version of Despair into the television episode, because the comic book version of Despair is a bit more like cosmic and demonic, and because the comic book origin of Cloak and Dagger is different than the TV one. So I'm wondering if Andre is just like a loose interpretation of the comic book version of Despair. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. And then it turns out that, for lack of a better term, I'm just going to call these people metahumans. It seems like the Flash, the origins of the Flash, and all the metahumans over there on the CW network. And Michelle, you and I, we cover the Arrow television on the Starling Tribune, but it seems a lot like the rig explosion affected a lot of people kind of the same way with some supernatural ability, as long as they were touching the same lake, I guess, is really where their powers came out. And I just have that reference point, so I'm just going to run with it in my head canon, not necessarily everybody else's head canon. But okay, that's actually, let's talk about Andre's backstory. So he was a struggling jazz artist, I guess, in New Orleans, which I gotta think that there's a lot of musicians in places like Memphis or New Orleans or Nashville or something like that that just want to be found. And he just seemed like one of those guys that wanted to be found.
Yeah, it seems as though his career was on that cusp. His bandmates said it was a very important night, and he didn't really want Andre to go for that note. He wanted a really good, solid set. Don't know when they were going to be asked back to this club. It's almost like, when you work up in gigs and you get bigger venues, and there is a moment sometimes in a lot of musicians where they get that nice venue where the right people attend, like maybe the record executives or such. And it seems as though that night was important because it's like he hit the note, then he collapsed, but he ended up having all those migraines, and with the migraines, he couldn't perform. And then we see him, lose it all.
It was almost heartbreaking if we hadn't had everything that happened afterwards in there, because we know kind of what a bad guy he is. But it was almost heartbreaking watching him actually hit that blue note and then just gaining the migraines from hitting the blue note. I mean, just resonated in his brain wrong, I guess, at that time. And he was suffering from the migraines for a few months. And he even left his horn, just left it out in the middle of this courtyard, which is a bunch of abandoned buildings. So he knew he was never going to go back to playing the horn again. And he was ready and set to end it all, and ended up falling off a building into the lake, basically when the rig explodes, thus exposing him to the same thing that Tandy and Tyrone were exposed to, and then creating his connection with the land of the Loa and his ability to, I don't know if it was meant specifically for him or if this had been around for a while, but created his ability to shake hands with somebody, to touch somebody, and then to be able to create their backstory of records in the record store. And he was able to feed off of that.
Yes. I mean, it's one thing to touch someone and feel their fear or their hope and take it. But he's an adult, and he one of the things that he kept comparing himself to was Tandy. And he was like, Tandy, I know last year you kept feeding off of people's hopes. You started to use your power for yourself, for gain. But let's compare this. Tandy and Tyrone are teenagers. Andre is a full-grown adult. He's had more life experience. He actually knows more about impulse control, more about what's right and wrong, because he's actually lived through life and he's had to live through all of these decisions. And for him to go and equate himself, it's like, well, you did this, Tandy, you know what it's like. It's just that, like, yeah, but man, you're the adult. You should know better.
He definitely should. By the way, the actor that played Andre was Brooklyn McClin. I don't think we've mentioned that before. I think he did a fantastic job. And if it really was him playing the trumpet, by the way, I have no idea if he did or didn't. I didn't look it up. He did a good job with that as well. Pretty good horn player. But he played the innocent counselor well. He played the argumentative adversary very well, where he was throwing those arguments back and forth with Ty and Tandy, and he was a master manipulator when it came down to it. I mean, you get to see the first time that he's manipulating Leah, and he's manipulating her to quit being a doctor and then to go into service for him. She ends up being a victim just as much as he is, and she ends up in jail at the end of this. And I don't really have too much of a problem there, but she was victimized by him. And was there a point in any time that you saw in this series with Leah that she really had an out of this?
You know, one of the things that seemed to be a theme this season was leaving abuse. Leah was basically, there's a term called gaslighting, where you know the truth, but people keep telling you something else. And eventually you just sort of like, you're exposed to it so much and it's given to you in a way that it does actually warp. And he actually starts talking to her after he feeds on her. Let's just say it that way. He feeds on her. She's in a weird state of mind. She's not completely herself. And then he manipulates her. And, you know, we've talked about Tandy having that whole, you just leave. Can you just leave? Where would Leah go? And I think that's one of the things that, you know, especially like with Michaela, where would Michaela have gone? Tandy brings up her mother. Where would have Melissa have gone? Lauren, I know Lauren and I have talked about this before in previous episodes. When it comes to leaving abusers, it takes, I think, statistically anywhere from 5 to 7 times. I think it's 7. It's that whole, where do you go? You have to set yourself up again. There's the fear of the person coming after you. It's very difficult to just leave. And it is one of those things where it's Andre's idea to set up the counseling. It's Andre's idea to target the counseling toward those young girls. And we really find out that he is the conductor of all of this.
We do. And he's ultimately responsible for everything going on. And you were right. You know, he's the adult. He should have known better, but he just wanted to feed on it and then take over the city, and possibly, Andy, I believe, mentions it at one point in time, take over the entire world, which I could see if he was allowed to continue. I could see that. And I don't know if there would be anybody in the world other than maybe Wanda that could come in and do anything with this. Maybe Doctor Strange. I don't know. But if they don't know where this threat is coming from, it might take them a while to get there. So it was a good thing that Tandy and Ty were there. Let's backtrack a little bit with Adina Johnson, Tyrone's mother. I had my doubts after seeing the episode last time and recording on it. I didn't express my doubts last week, but I had my doubts that she actually pulled the trigger and killed Connors. After these 2 episodes, it's pretty obvious that she killed Connors. She put at least 1, if not 2 bullets in his chest. And there was a request to Mayhem to deal with the body later. Adina killed Connors. I feel like there's more to that story. I feel like that story wasn't completely wrapped up with a nice little bow on it. I feel like Adina's got to live with this for the rest of her life. I know in her mind, she's justified it, that she was looking out for Tyrone and getting justice for Billy. But I still feel like I was cheated out of a little bit of backstory there.
Yes, we see her. Last time we see her is with Delgado, And then we see the news blurb of the senator being arrested. Connor's being hung up. It looks like some sort of suicide, but everybody knows it's not going to be one. But because the senator was arrested, they're probably just going to try to cover it up. And then we see his parents on the couch. Like everything's okay.
Yeah, Otis and Adina just sitting there watching the news. Also, earlier on, you see Tyrone peeking in the window because Adina doesn't sound right when Tyrone calls her on the burner phone, and she is at the fireplace burning all of the newspapers that have blood on them, probably trying to clean up the mess that she left with Connors. And I don't feel like that was an end to it. Yes, she was burning the newspapers, but I think generally there's more to it than that when you kill somebody in a TV with a quote unquote good person.
I know. It's one of the things that I liked this season, but there are a few holes. Like, is Delgado still a priest? Did he give it up? I know we see him in the church. There are a lot of threads. I think they really thought they were going to get a season 3. And perhaps that's something that is a stone that was thrown. And yes, she seems fine now, but I think that was supposed to be a stone that was thrown in the lake, and the ripples were supposed to be felt next season.
Yeah, Father Delgado obviously went through with the packet, giving the packet to somebody. He was last seen in the church, I did notice, without his collar still. That's kind of symbolic on TV, and it's kind of symbolic in reality. No, a priest doesn't have the white collar on all the time. I mean, they do go to bed, and they don't wear the collar on when they're in the bed, in the shower, that sort of thing. So the collar does come off, but he was up around cleaning up the church that both Tandy and Tyrone had lived in before. And I wasn't sure if he was going to start bunking up there or if he was going to clean it up to create his own congregation servicing to the people that were disadvantaged and messed up, like he was, like Tandy was, like hiding out, like Tyrone was. That's kind of the feeling I got, but he still didn't have the collar on. So to me, there is a loose thread there that wasn't tied up. But I guess it was tied up enough for me with Father Delgado that I would be okay with his story ending like that. Because he was in a halfway house. I wouldn't expect him to pick up the collar again. I mean, the church would obviously have some issues with that, meaning the Catholic Church, with all the problems that they've had in the past. I can't see them reinstating a priest that's been through that without some extensive, I don't know, therapy or sessions or something like that. So I don't know. I'm fine with that. So you got Adina. Otis, other than running in with Adina when Connors was being interrogated, he really didn't have too much to do the last few episodes. Actually, this whole season, Otis wasn't a primary character because he was basically thrown out of the house from the beginning, or he left the house. He was living with Choo Choo with I believe it was Red Hawks or Red Wings or something like that. And Choo Choo was the guy in charge of all that. So Otis was living with him. And at the end, he's there with Adina. So I guess they're back together. So I'm okay with his story there, other than he's now has to live with the fact that he knows Adina killed Connors.
Which I think he's going to be fine with. Because maybe he would be like, I probably would have done it too.
I don't blame him for everything that they've gone through. It's hard to blame them here. And Connors did want to recant, but he also wanted to make sure that the senator, his uncle, went down. Asia Johnson, I believe was his name. So
here's the question, though. If the senator got arrested, if Connors was alive, he would have to testify, correct?
Testify to what, though?
Testify against the senator, his uncle.
if he had a deal, you can't incriminate yourself on the stand. So technically he'd have to plead the fifth, or he'd have to assume that he was going to tell stuff that was going to incriminate himself.
But that's what he seemed like he wanted to do. He had turned over the information which incriminated him. He wanted to turn himself into the cops.
Yeah.
Which means that he would have probably had to testify. Even the senator's people would want to probably bring him up. So would he have, his life still would have been in danger though, right?
Oh, yeah. By the senator alone, his life would have been, or other cops or something like that. I didn't see any way of Connor's coming out of this alive. And I think he was okay with that ultimately, although he did try to escape from Medina's house.
True.
So just another thread that we're not going to be able to really close up. And I don't think they're going to. So let's just assume with the crossover with Runaways that Tyrone and Tandy are not going to be able to tie up some of these loose ends with other characters. Maybe with themselves. I don't see too many with themselves, but other characters, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
We did, though, get a reference. It didn't tie anything up, but we got a reference, and you'd been telling us this since day one of when we started Cloak and Dagger. We finally got our Luke Cage reference.
Yes. Tyrone and I believe his name's Solomon,
yeah.
Yeah. And they're in the diner, and there's that article about Luke Cage by Karen Page. He's in the hoodie, bulletproof. We got that. I was just waiting for it. They actually talk about, and Tyrone actually uses it to get Solomon to help him, saying that Luke Cage seemed to be the type of person that even if he wasn't bulletproof, he would still be out there doing his thing.
Yeah, when you think about it, that there has been talks about bringing the Netflix series over to Disney Plus, and we've talked about it before in the show where it's mostly the same casting except for over with Iron Fist. And even then, the Iron Fist universe could still be alive, could still be there. They're just going for a different version of the Iron Fist character at the very least. So Danny Rand could still exist. We're just not going to see him on screen. Because of that, and because of this mention, then it is possible that Cloak and Dagger and Runaways, by extension, that we're getting the Runaways crossover, they could still end up being alive in some manner in the Disney Plus universe. Now, I doubt that's all going to happen because I just get this feeling that Kevin Feige does not want any of this out there other than the Defenders. And if he cancels the Defenders, because Defenders are still owned by Netflix. This is just in preparation for when the character rights go back to Marvel and Marvel Studios, not Marvel Television, Marvel Studios. And there is a possibility that we get some of these characters back or storylines back, but I just don't see it. I think everybody's going to be moving on after this because they're actors. They got to look for work. They got to be employed.
True. That's what hurts when stuff like this happens, when Marvel decides to get rid of its television division and put everything together. I just miss shows like this. And it's like, bring them, put everything on Hulu or bring them all to Disney Plus. And it's just Cloak and Dagger deserved better.
Now, if you want to take The Mandalorian in the Star Wars universe as an example, would you prefer to get a show like The Mandalorian or to have several shows like Ghost Rider, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, like Runaways, like Cloak and Dagger, or would you rather have the cinematic experience of a premium streaming service series?
I think when done right, they're both good.
Good answer. I like that. We'll see what happens in the future because they still have ABC. So while Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the only thing that's on ABC, there had been rumblings, and this was Jeff Loeb, there had been rumblings of replacing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with something, and they could still do that. They could have that interaction with the MCU phase 3, phase 4 over on ABC, and then just build from there. So it's possible, but more than likely it's all just going to be on Disney Plus.
Yeah, they were saying that before Disney Plus, and I think they knew Disney Plus was going to be successful. I don't think they anticipated it was going to be this successful and that Baby Yoda was going to be this popular.
Yeah, because all the Star Wars series up to date, I mean, take a look at the live action TV to date, you know, the Ewoks stuff and the Life Day stuff. It was a joke, really. The live action Star Wars stuff turned out to be a joke to many, many fans. You had more of it in the anime stuff. You had the Clone Wars, you had Rebels, you had, I keep on forgetting, Rebellion?
Rebels and then Resistance. Right.
It's Resistance. Resistance, out of the three, Rebels is definitely my favorite, having not seen the Clone Wars. I've heard that Clone Wars is pretty good. And Rebels is definitely better than Resistance. Resistance is more of a times piece than anything else. And we got to see BB-8 on the screen on the anime. That was about it. All right, let's move on from that. Let's get back on Cloak and Dagger. You have a couple of characters that are in interesting spots. You have Mayhem, who is back in kind of back and forth on where she stands with the divine pair. And ultimately, she came in handy and she was backing up Evita in the church, trying to keep that candle lit so Tyrone and Tandy could stay there and fight the big boss battle. I thought, of anything, that was really well done in the storyline. You thought she might have been gone or anything. She comes out of nowhere and saves Evita. That was really well done.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of the episodes. And Evita, I am going to miss Evita so much. I know at the end, Tyrone and Tandy leave New Orleans, but it doesn't mean in season 3 they could have come back or there could have been Evita some way. Out of all the characters, besides our main ones, Evita is the one that, man, I'm going to miss her.
Out of all the storylines, out of all the loose ends or whatever, she is the one that I have most of an issue with, because she just turned, of course, she's married to the Baron Samedi, and she just turns and leaves without saying anything. It wasn't like they weren't talking beforehand, because they were talking and she brought the nail gun and everything, but she leaves without saying anything to anybody, including Ty. I just thought that was just such a bad way to end it. And yes, relationships end like that in real life, but it was such a bad way to end it. I wish we would have gotten a little bit more closure there between Evita and Tyrone before the final scene, basically, which tells you that we're never going to see Evita again.
Yeah, Tyrone really didn't treat Evita very well this season. He didn't talk to her for 8 months, so she had no idea where he was for 8 months. And then when Tandy and Tyrone go to her, they're having this conversation like she's not even, could be even listening. And he feels all like jilted or something. And it's like, you know, Evita's been really there for you and you haven't really treated her all that well. So Evita just kind of giving him a look and leaving. I really understood, considering how he treated her the entire season.
That's fair enough. And I have a question. Where did Papa Legba go? Do you have any idea? I didn't understand why Papa Legba was not there at the crossroads.
It seems as though Andre, there is a line, and I heard it again. He was given the powers of a god without any consequence. And it is as though he got to blow up the lower dimension or reshape it in his way, because he was actually taking people from the material plane, from the real life. And when they heard their song, they basically just popped into that dimension. He was a god who decided to take over. He had no compassion. He just wanted to do his own thing. And I think that's what that was supposed to stress. Because we didn't see Papa Legba when they went to the gas station, because Tandy had to actually form a Vevey in order to get them to the mall. I think that's what they were trying to stress, how powerful Andre had become and how difficult their final battle was supposed to be.
That was pretty cool. So they're at the crossroads and Papa Legba isn't there. Fuchs isn't there. None of the people that Papa Legba was playing were there. And the vision thing, I forget what it's called, the thing that you look into, the little telescope or binoculars or whatever that you see at a lot of tourist sightseeing places, is gone. And they end up taking the coins that were a part of that, making the Vevey, and then talking about the daggers and full of hope and everything. So that was a pretty cool way to end it. So Joe, you did a great job writing that whole thing in, because that really tied up the essence of the powers that Tandy was giving and the hope that needed to be involved, especially because of the major mind frack that she had to go through this past season with Andre. You had the final fights, by the way, that Andre forced them through. So they finally get to Andre. Tandy and Tyrone finally get to Andre, and he just sends them via music to these rooms, basically where they're fighting themselves, their own minds. Tyrone is fighting the best version of him, or the perceived best version of him that we've seen in alternative universes or alternative scenes before with the Vikingstown Sound records. And then with Tandy, you've got her going through all of the physical abuse with her father, although I don't think she was ever physically abused. We didn't see that. Not that it didn't happen, but we didn't see it. But the knowing that her father was somebody that physically abused her mom. And then I thought this was really fracked up when she was in the Viking motel in her room, basically waiting for her trick to show up. In comes Nathan Bowen, her dad. That was just fracked up right there.
Completely. And I liked how they first had to, they were fighting their own minds and they weren't doing very well. Then they found each other and they thought they could outsmart Andre by switching partners. And
they kind of did for a little bit.
Yeah. And I think, they were actually giving each other a pep talk while they were fighting the alternate selves. So when Andre said, no, that's cheating, you have to fight, you have to face your own fears. It was like those little pep talks that they gave each other finally, clicked, and they were able to face their own fears. And Tandy was able to make the Hope Sword, which was cool.
That was cool. So Tandy did two phenomenal things in here. First of all, she made that Hope Sword. So before it was just daggers or whatever, and they went through the whole explanation of the daggers, why daggers were more powerful ultimately. And then all of a sudden, whoop, she got the whole light sword, the lightsaber, the big long thing that she was holding Nathan back on. I just thought that was great. And then to cap everything off, I did not see where Tandy went in that final battle moment. I honestly, I didn't see it. I was just, all of a sudden she's off screen, and it was just Tyrone facing Andre, and out from the cloak, basically the cloak part of Tyrone, comes a leaping Tandy with the sword to just shove it in Andre. What a fitting end to this whole thing. That is leveling up. If anything was level up, that was level up.
And how before she actually threw hope shards in her mom, Ina, and Michaela, and that gave them the ability to snap out of it and come and help hold Andre down.
I'm wondering if they will recognize where they were. Like when they actually got out of it, do they understand that they were in the land of the Loa? Will they remember what Tandy did for them?
That's a conversation. We didn't get a conversation between Tandy and her mom.
Yep.
I was really expecting, I understood why Tyrone didn't have those final moments with his parents because, of course, it would have been nice to have gotten because it seems as though he was cleared, but he wasn't 100% cleared. So I can maybe see why he didn't have a face-to-face with his parents because maybe he would have still been arrested. Who knows? But to not get a moment between Tandy and her mom, considering the themes of this season, and one of the things she kept being angry at her mom about was, why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just leave? You just leave. It would have just been a nice moment to have and to show like what Tandy has learned and be able to have this nice sort of good conversation to make sure her mom's not going to backslide or fall off the wagon again, or, hey, this is how you can contact me.
Especially because her support system was just degraded because it was all based on Andre and Leah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, wow. I just feel there's more in a few places, and Melissa Bowen was one of the places where I wish we would have gotten more on at the end. And maybe they filmed more, but they just couldn't show it. Like they cut it for time or cut it for story, and they thought they were going to get more time. They could explore it later. Like they knew they were going to have a crossover. So they ended the series with, or the season with Tyrone and Tandy leaving town, going somewhere else. Obviously they're going to show up on the West Coast where the Runaways are. And they even referenced, girls being found on the beach or whatever. So you're like, okay, they're headed out there. I can see this happening, but they just weren't given a chance to wrap up those storylines. And I think Joe Pokaski, who's the showrunner and writer of many of these episodes, I think he, if given the heads up that this is going to be it, he wouldn't have left those. He would have taken the time with this episode, with the final episode, with Level Up, and he would have had those short conversations, those minute and a half conversations between characters to wrap up some of these things. And I'm not going to throw blame at him at all. Not really going to throw blame at Marvel Television either, Jeff Loeb, because I don't think at that time they had a clue. I thought they thought that they were going to do fine. They were on ABC Family. It was a broadcast show. There was no indication that they were going to get canceled. So I just think that there's a few things. It doesn't make the series bad or the season bad, but I just wish they would have wrapped things up a little bit.
Yeah, it's like Melissa, Mina, and Evita really, they just were not, those are really, to me, like the three characters who were treated poorly and I wish got treated better.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Mina. She's just in the lab playing with her mice. And she did say she wished she wouldn't have devoted her time, her life, to focus on this energy because none of it would have happened before. Because Mayhem goes to her because Mayhem's trying to figure it out if everything's okay because she's not feeling 100% on herself. She's having this conversation with Mina. How you seem like you've got it together. How do you do it? And Mina tells her a few things and then she disappears thanks to Andre. So Mayhem doesn't really get the whole thing. It's kind of funny. Tyrone and Tandy were like, what do we call her now? Bridget? Like, yeah, Bridget's just fine. We know it's Mayhem. We know it's both, but we know that Mayhem's in the driver's seat right now. So that's what we're going to do. Plus the poison fingernails.
True.
All right. How do you think of the season and the series now that we have watched everything for the podcast and you've watched everything twice? How do you feel about it?
I can tell with the first season, they were like, we need to make sure we tell a complete story. We might not get a second season. The second season, it was like, okay, we got an interesting story, but we think we're going to get a third season. So let's leave these breadcrumbs because we're probably going to get a third season. You didn't get a third season. And I thought it explored some interesting themes and such, but I don't think it stuck the landing. One of the things about the first season, yes, the first season started off slow and you were kind of confused about their powers. But I would say the last 4 episodes of the first season, it really stuck the landing. This season, I don't think it stuck the landing as well.
I'll equate it to another series that I podcasted on, which was Defiance. It was a sci-fi show They had 3 seasons. We didn't know at the 3rd season when it aired whether or not they were going to get a 4th season. I don't think Sci-Fi really knew. So in talking with the showrunner, it was obvious to us, because we interviewed the showrunner on Voices of Defiance, it was obvious to us that the studio was stringing them along a little bit on how they utilized characters in that final season. So they shot several scenes differently with some of the characters. Linda Hamilton was one of the characters. Yes, that Linda Hamilton was one of the characters. And they were going to shoot her one way where literally they shot her and she died. But they took that off and they left it as a mystery. And they didn't want her to die on the series because that would be bad juju. You don't kill off Linda Hamilton. You just don't do that, apparently. Also, with the last episode, it was obvious that they wanted to do one thing originally leading to a 4th season, and then they were told to do something else. And then they crafted that last, the ending scene, right? The ending 5 minutes of the entire series, the last episode. They crafted it so that it ended a lot better than it would have. Were there dangling threads? Yes, there were dangling threads, but at least they didn't do like an alpha season 2 where they thought for sure they were going to get a season 3. They left a big cliffhanger and then boom, nothing. I think showrunners are getting a little bit better at running into the end of a season, not knowing if they're going to have another series or not. We do it here. We've done it here all along with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We literally have not known if there was going to be another season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. until this last season, where they said, okay, we're going to give you 2 seasons, 6 and 7. And it's going to end that way. And I think the showrunners for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have done a reasonable job of ending the seasons. There was one season that ended the series better than the rest. It was season 5, but it was a possibility. So I think it's just something that we're going to have to deal with from now on whether or not these series actually get picked up. And I don't know the streaming part with Disney Plus, with Hulu streaming, with Netflix, with Prime. I don't know how that all combines into it long term either, because there's another show that I've been watching and on Prime called Mann in the High Castle. On their 2nd or 3rd season, I think it was the 2nd season, they went through 4 showrunners with a streaming service. Like, no wonder it looked so off and it felt like there were 4 different stories, because you had 4 different showrunners running it. At least with this, you had one showrunner for 2 years. Cloak and Dagger. It was Joe for both years. So Joe, I think you did a good job in getting to the end. I enjoyed watching the series, and I hope you do well in the future. I hope you pick up another series. I do. Is this the best Marvel series ever? No. Is it in humans? No. So I think you did pretty good at it.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed it. I did.
One last question for you. Pancakes or waffles?
Food-wise, waffles.
It was nice that they ended it with that between Tandy and Ty.
Yeah, because that was like the first episode, first 2. Yeah. And then it ended that way and such. But yeah, especially when, I don't know what it is about those hotel waffle maker things that you like, you put it in and then you flip it and it does for 2 minutes. I don't know why those things make the best waffles. It perplexes me.
So we've got one of those at home. I do prefer the small. Okay, so those are more Belgian waffles where you have the big, huge holes in them or whatever. I prefer the smaller one, the smaller square ones, the thinner ones. And I think they cook better overall and they don't flip. But yeah, the bigger ones, the Belgian Whoppers, apparently they cook better when you flip. I guess because heat rises. It's the only thing I got there.
I don't know, but those hotel, I went into a convention last week and my hotel actually had free breakfast, which was amazing. And it had those waffle things, and put that in there, and then you take the thing and then you flip it over, and they're so good.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Oh gosh. Anyway, now I'm hungry.
I know. And me too. So it's supper time. I just want to say, both Haley and Lauren wanted to say something about the series. So we'll get to it when we get to the Runaways, and definitely when we get to the crossover. that will probably be the time. If we have anything last to say about the series, we'll be saying it there, the crossover of Runaways. Well, next time we'll be talking about Runaways Season 3, Episode 1, Smoke and Mirrors, Season 3, Episode 2, The Great Escape. These episodes just dropped 2 days ago. I've referenced that a couple of times. Neither Michelle nor I have watched these yet, although we will before we record next time. And I'm looking forward to seeing the third and final series of The Runaways.
Me too.
So as we're looking at that right now, why don't we get on the bus and get on out of here? First of all, I want to say thank you for Michelle. I want to say thank you very much for not spoiling us on the podcast. You did a tremendous job knowing what you knew and still having decent conversations with us without spoiling. That was amazing. Thank you very much.
I tried really hard to make sure I didn't want to ruin anything. I did want to make sure I sort of clarified here and there to make sure your experience was like good. But it's tough. It is tough.
I get it. And you did a great job with it. So just want to say thank you. And I knew how tough that was. And thank you to our listeners. You were the ones that wanted us to go through Cloak and Dagger. And thank you very much for that. And we've had fun talking about it. Unfortunately, this is it. This is all we get. It's like Firefly, right? You get 14 episodes of Firefly. You only get to watch it once and that's it.
And the movie. 6 seasons in a movie.
Yay! So thank you very much to our listeners for suggesting it, downloading the podcast. I hope you enjoy our final coverage of The Runaways.
Yes, thank you to everyone who interacts with us. We appreciate it. Thank you for, continue to listen during this drought between seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fortunately, it's Marvel and they have produced a lot of stuff. So we still have stuff to cover.
We do. In that hiatus to the next season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Until next time, I'm Director SB.
And I'm Agent Michelle.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to gonnageek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the property of the Disney Corporation, Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2019.